the world, you're getting it firsthand. Today, we're not coming against President Biden. We're just fact checking. We're just getting the facts from the people who are there, who know firsthand, the people who are experts in the Constitution. And that's what we're doing. We bring you news in the spirit of faith and in the truth, because information under the anointing makes you powerful. You won't fall for things. First, let's take a look at the top stories with Mike Garofalo. Mike?
Greg, I am here in Mission, Texas. Right behind me, I'm going to get out of the way for a second, is the Rio Grande. You can see we've got some state trooper patrol boats here that have some heavy hardware to keep the senators that are going to be with them today protected. And then across the other side of the river, where you can see in the far distance there, that is Mexico, not very far away, just a couple hundred yards away. So once again, we are here in Mission, Texas, getting ready for the senators. About 17 or so U.S. senators are going to be taking a tour. In about 2 or 3 hours. We're going to talk to them. We're not going on the tour, but we're going to talk to them when they come back.
Let me turn it over to my colleague and friend, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, John. It is great to be back in the Rio Grande Valley. It is terrific that John and I were able to bring 18 senators down to Texas, down to the valley, to see firsthand the crisis that is unfolding here. All of us today witnessed the Biden cages. What is occurring here on the border is heartbreaking, and it is a tragedy. You know, as we stand by the banks of the Rio Grande, we have an army of TV cameras here. It is striking that not a single one of these cameras is allowed in the Donna facility. We requested that media accompany us in the facility. The Biden administration said no. The Trump administration had allowed media inside facilities like that. The Obama administration had allowed media inside facilities like that. The George W. Bush administration had. The Bill Clinton administration had. But the Biden administration wants to hide what is going on here. Not only that, but a number of us took pictures and took videos because the American people have a right to know what is happening here. And the Biden administration sent down political handlers to try to keep silent, to try to keep the American people not knowing what's going on. The Donna facility is a giant tent city built with a capacity of 250. It has nearly 4,000 people in it. We saw cages after cages after cages of little girls, of little boys, lying side by side, touching each other, covered with reflective emergency blankets. There was no 6-foot space, there was no 3-foot space, there wasn't a 3-inch space between the children lined up one after the other after the other. And children as young as infants, we saw playpens with infants and toddlers playing. We also saw a group of children who just today tested positive for COVID-19. The Donna facility alone reports roughly 10% of the individuals being held there are testing positive for COVID-19. Rates dramatically higher than the U.S. population, and the Biden administration is taking people who are testing positive for COVID-19 and locking them in cages side by side. This is inhumane, it is wrong, and it is the direct consequence of policy decisions by the Biden administration to stop building the wall, to return to catch and release, and to end the stay in Mexico policy. A number of us are releasing those photographs and releasing those videos so the American people can see what's happening here. This needs to stop. It is a crisis, it is a tragedy, and it is a man-made crisis. This was avoidable, this was preventable. And regardless of your party, Republican or Democrat, you should look at what's going on here and say enough is enough, this must stop. Johnson.
And during President Joe Biden's first press conference, he repeatedly blamed the Trump administration for the current immigration crisis. Biden's executive order created let's take a listen.
All the policies that are underway were not helping at all. Did not slow up the amount of immigration and as many people coming. And rolling back the policies of separating children from their mothers, I make no apology for that. Rolling back the policies of remain in Mexico, sitting on the edge of the Rio Grande in a muddy circumstance with not enough to eat. I make no apologies for that.
During the press conference, Joe Biden specifically mentioned his efforts to halt the Remain in Mexico policy and stop separations of migrant families at the border that were implemented under the Trump administration.
Saying a lot. Why are 18 senators here? Because it's the biggest issue facing the country in many ways right now. So what have I learned? They knew. If the Trump administration had been told something and they did the opposite and it blew up in their face, everybody would be asking the Trump administration, what did you know and when did you know it? So I'm going to help you here with your reporting. Mr. Hastings, who's a 2-star Border Patrol leader, told us that he briefed transition members of the Biden administration as to what would happen if you do away with the Remain in Mexico policy. He told us they briefed the Biden administration what would happen if you changed the Title 42 laws to allow unaccompanied children to come here and not be sent back home. Everything they said would happen happened. So if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find out who he talked to and memorialize that conversation and hold them accountable, because they knew, and when they say this is Trump problem, they're lying. This is a problem of their own making. What else have I learned? That Joe Biden, the president, made the problem worse yesterday. This was a nightmare press conference. He told everybody, don't worry, we've got crowded facilities. We're going to build 5,000 more beds in Texas at a military base. So how does that play in Central America? They're going to expand the number of people they can take. He said when a child has a phone number on their wrist, we're going to call the family member and unite that family. This is uniting illegal immigration. So the last thing I learned is that we're complicit as a nation in human trafficking. What did we learn last night? There's a trail on our side of the border with markers placed by the federal government to show illegal immigrants where to go. That we're transporting people who pay to get here the last mile with your taxpayer dollar. It's costing about $800 a day per child. If we don't change the pull factors, go back to the Remain in Mexico policy where they can't apply for asylum here, send the unaccompanied minor children back to their home country, there will be 250,000 people a month coming. The Border Patrol said there is no end to this. So Vice President Harris, this is your job to fix. I promise you I will work with you, but you cannot possibly understand your job unless you come here.
And joining us right now is retired Border Patrol Division Chief Jim Weiner. Jim, thanks for joining us. Let's begin by talking about the gag order that is in place right now for Border Patrol. What can you tell us about that?
So, just like during the Obama administration, we saw the same thing where orders came down with a gag order that we were not supposed to talk about crisis going on or interact with the media and things like that. And you're seeing that again right now. And so, I say to our president and his administration, what are you trying to hide? I mean, he won't even let the media into these detention facilities. And in his press conference yesterday, he said, well, I'll let you in once I clean things up. Now, so how bad is it in there? I mean, that would be the question, is how bad is it in there that he has to clean it up before he'll let you guys go in and see what's really going on?
President Biden doesn't want the media to be here because we do have an open border. Last night when we stood under that bridge, we watched as families, if you had a 6-year-old or younger come in, within hours you were processed and released into the country. If you were an unaccompanied minor, you were sent over to the Donna facility, which we went and visited. That facility, just in one of the pods that I stood in, is designed for 80 people in that pod, and they had 709 people in that pod when we were there. Literally wall to wall in every one of the plexiglass little cells that they have, and then people flooding out into the hallway in between them. 709 people in a pod set up for 80. So that's what happens to the unaccompanied minors. Families are released into the country immediately. And for single adults that are crossing the border, here's the basic thing that's occurring, and everyone down here knows it, and so do the cartels. They'll release 100 or more adults to be able to go one direction, while 100 or more children and families go a different direction. They turn themselves in, which means Border Patrol has to move to that spot. leaving the rest of the border open for adults with criminal records and others to be able to come across. That is the definition of an open border. Removing the security from one area and making sure that people can cross in that area, and allowing 50% of our Border Patrol to have to be used to do input and data processing. This is something that needs to be addressed and can be addressed by President Biden, but it was very clear when we got here, there's a reason why he doesn't want the press to be here.
I'm a mother. I have a daughter. And after visiting where these kids are being kept that are close to my daughter's age, the stories we are hearing are beyond horrifying that's happening to these young girls. We have a job to do. We've got to go back to D.C. Not only do we have to save this border, we've got to save this country.
Tom Tellis from North Carolina. A lot of my colleagues have covered the tragedy here. Can you imagine how any president or vice president, given the facts that we presented here, and these are facts, ladies and gentlemen, you can go out to our websites, and I hope that you will, and share this information with the American people. 2-year-old and 3-year-old children sitting alone at a bench unaccompanied. They called them playpens, but they were actually holding areas for little babies. I've got pictures. My colleagues have pictures. Go out there, report this to the American people, and maybe the president will take notice. And the next time Vice President Harris is asked if she's coming to the border, instead of laughing and saying, "Not today," get down here, get informed, and recognize you've got a crisis and it's on you to fix it. And we stand ready to help.
Goes back to the gag order. You see a lot of people in the media talking about what's going on the border, but you don't hear from, where's the Border Patrol agents? Where's the experts? They know what's going on. They're living that. They're living that nightmare every day.
I'm John Barrasso, Senator from the state of Wyoming. We came here for a number of reasons. Number one, we wanted to thank the Border Patrol for the job they do every day and every night. We met with them last night and went on midnight patrol with them. They told us their job got a lot harder on January 20th, the day that Joe Biden became president of the United States. As we were with them last night in the darkness across the river, we could see the traffickers and the coyotes and the smugglers on the other side of the river with their bright lights, almost as bright as that television light right there. And they were taunting our border agents, saying, "You cannot stop us now." That's what our agents are up against as a result of the policies of the Biden administration. Today we went to the Donna facility. And what we saw were young people crammed in like sardines, something none of us would want for any of our own children. And as we tried and did video what was happening there to share with the country and the world, the Biden administration censors tried to stop us. Yesterday, President Biden held a press conference, and he said that the great majority of families who come here illegally are being sent back. That's not true. And either he doesn't know it or won't admit it to the American people. The Border Patrol will tell you it's not true. The senators who are here today will tell you it's not true. The men and women in the field will tell you it's not true. It's time to let the press in to see what is happening and the tragedy that this administration has brought on to our nation.
The last thing we're going to do is introduce a resolution praising the men and women of the Border Patrol and the Customs Department. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 56 times. Our soldiers serve in incredibly tough conditions. What we're asking the men and women of the Border Patrol to do is inhumane. They have to deal with things that I don't know how they make it through the day. I don't know how their families stay together. So we owe it to them. Finally, the president said, "I'm not going to apologize to anybody about my policies." Mr. President, you need to apologize to those whose job it is to secure the country for making their job impossible. And most importantly, you need to change.
And last time there was a surge at the border, Democrats had a flurry of hearings. But of course, that was when the president was a Republican by the name of Donald Trump. This time around, you can hear the crickets chirping. But on Thursday, Republicans began demanding that things change. As the Washington Times is reporting, Kentucky Republican James Comer on Thursday called for an investigation into Joe Biden's handling of the border crisis, which the congressman says worsens by the day. Republicans began the call for things when they sent a letter to the chairwoman of the House Oversight and Reform Committee, Carolyn Maloney of New York. But she has yet to respond or react.
Slow motion. Now, despite weeks of preparation, even fake news CNN admits it, cheat sheets with 14-point font and, of course, a compliant media mob lobbing one softball question after another, it still was not enough for Joe Biden. The frail, the weak, the cognitively struggling, clearly commander-in-chief, or is he, did not do well today, to say the least. His long, rambling answers, his confusion, at points making no sense whatsoever. At other times, he became dazed and confused. He just stopped mid-sentence. Stared into space, stared into the distance. Yeah, this is your president.
And the other thing we're doing, I might add, am I giving you too long an answer? Because if you don't want the detail. No, but I mean, I don't know how much detail you want about immigration. Maybe I'll stop there and finish. I believe we should go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. We're going to get a lot done. It is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss it.
The conference was also filled with some meandering by the president, who appeared to have a list of reporters he had pre-selected to call on. Here's some of that and an answer about the future of the filibuster in the U.S. Senate. You'll see what I mean. Watch this.
Okay. Where am I here? Let me see.
While numerous topics were not covered by the 10 questions asked by reporters, one journalist used her time asking Joe Biden if he was planning on running for re-election in 2024.
Have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss it. No, an answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
And we miss him too, Mr. President. Tim?
Yes, we do.
All right, I want to bring in America's constitutional coach and Victory News contributor Rick Green. Rick, we're doing some fact checking on the press conference yesterday. Your thoughts?
Well, it was a disaster, first of all, an embarrassment to the country, and just continues to tell the rest of the world and our enemies around the world that our president is not capable of leading our nation. He's not even capable of having an actual press conference. This wasn't a press conference. It was reading a few talking points and calling on pre-prepared reporters. So, you know, it's got to stop at some point. And, of course, we mentioned that last week. 25th Amendment's going to have to be invoked at some point if Biden's family is not going to have the courage to pull him off the national stage when he does not have the mental ability to do the job. But certainly, yeah, no question, we need to be fact-checking him. Look, Donald Trump was solving this problem, had reduced the problem way below what it was when Obama had sent the same signal to folks and encouraged them to come. And had Biden not stopped the building of the wall and stopped the good policies that Trump had in place, we wouldn't be dealing with this. And it is now a humanitarian crisis. Mike's looking at it firsthand. This is horrific what's happened. People are going to die. More children will be in sex slavery as a result of the horrible policies of this president. And I'm thankful that we've got some senators and others that are calling him on this and pushing back. And I'm just praying that we can get some good policies back in place to stop the harm.
You're the constitutional coach. Real quickly, this is part of the federal government's responsibility, isn't it? The border?
Absolutely. You know, Article 1, Section 8 puts this squarely in the hands of the federal government. The founders designed it that way because they didn't want one state to allow for what they called obnoxious aliens to come in, that would be allowed to come in with a low threshold in one state and then travel to other states and harm their economy or have criminal elements or whatever it might be. So their view was that if we did this at the national level, we would have a high bar for everyone. President Biden is doing the exact opposite. He's saying no bar, essentially allow anyone to come, which harms every state in the union, but especially my home state of Texas, where they are flooding across the border. These ranchers that live down in South Texas, it is a very, very difficult situation, what we're facing right now. Thankfully, the state of Texas is stepping up and starting to do the job of the federal government in some of these cases. But yes, it does constitutionally, it is constitutionally at the feet of the federal government, but they're simply not doing their job.
Great information. Thank you, Rick. You mentioned Texas. Let's go to Arizona. I want to bring in Sheriff Mark Lamb from Pinal County in Arizona. Sheriff Lamb, thank you for joining us today. You are in Cochise County, near the border there in Arizona. It seems to me, sir, that the cartels are running the border now and not us. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that's correct. The cartels have been running the border for a while. And we just had a president who was doing the best he could to stop that. And his policies and his the things that he implemented were effective. And now we've completely undone that. And so all we've done is embolden the cartels. Whether Joe Biden did it, whether he did it intentionally or unintentionally, he's responsible for aiding and abetting these cartels and their operations. They're making money hand over fist right now on bodies and drugs coming into this country. And you mentioned something right before I came on where you talked about this is no longer about immigration. This is about human trafficking and drug trafficking into this country. And we are committed to stopping that. And every American should be alarmed by what's going on.
Okay, so I want to ask you the situation there in Arizona. There's a lot of focus today on Texas because the senators are here. Is what the president said yesterday, we're fact-checking today with people that, like you, that are there. Is that accurate, the portrayal of the situation there in Arizona?
No, not at all. You know, I remember a Seinfeld episode where George Costanza says, Jerry, if you believe it, it's not a lie. I think they truly do believe that their policies are effective, but they're not. The fact of the matter is this is a problem. They're not just releasing everybody, they're not only letting kids come in and turning it away the other ones. They are actually allowing these people to come in. I caught 35 people in my county, which is between Phoenix and Tucson. We're about 60 miles off the border. I called Border Patrol. They didn't have any agents in the area. Called ICE. They couldn't come take them. So I had to release 35 people into my community. We caught 49 one day. We catch about 20 a day. We're having a pursuit and a bailout, which means we pursue them. They bail out of the vehicle. That's happening every day in our county. We had the last 3 days in the morning. We've had those. So they're not returning everybody. I can tell you firsthand, they're just dumping them right into our communities. And the private prison now just told us, hey, ICE isn't going to deport these folks that we're releasing anymore, so we're releasing them right into your little small town where your sheriff's office is.
Okay, sir, on that note that you just mentioned, let me read you what the president said in his press conference yesterday and get your thoughts on this. He said, if you take a look at the number of people coming in, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming to the border and crossing are being sent back. True or false?
No, that's false. Whether they're maybe right at the checkpoints, that might be true. But they're not taking into consideration the fact that they've moved all their Border Patrol agents away from these areas where the cartel has historically trafficked humans and drugs. And because they're dealing with all these kids on the border, now they're coming completely unchecked in through these areas, through the desert and into counties like mine. And they're not turning them away. When we catch them, they're telling us just to release them. So that's a flat out lie. Facts are facts. They have a hard time getting around those, but they've got a complicit media that is just feeding the same lines that they feed us. The media is just feeding that out to the American public, and it's just not true.
It is not true, and that's why we came directly to you, and we came directly to the Texas border today to get the truth. The American people are smart, and if you tell them the truth, they'll rally around it every single time. Sheriff, thank you so much for what you're doing. Mike.
Another state has taken steps to bar transgender athletes from competing in girls' sports. This latest one is Arkansas. On Thursday, Governor A'ja Hutchinson signed legislation barring transgender athletes from competing in girls' and women's sports. The Republican governor signed SB 354, the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, shortly after it passed both chambers by wide margins. The bill was delivered to his desk Tuesday. The governor of Mississippi signed a similar bill on March 11th. Greg, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. I want to bring Rick Green in, and then we'll bring the Sheriff Lamb back in. He was just talking about the Bidens, Hunter Biden, we're working on a story now where Hunter Biden may have committed, and it's alleged, may have committed a felony where a handgun is concerned. Rick, we saw the tragedy.
We're learning more about the bizarre 2018 gun incident surrounding Hunter Biden and his late brother's widow, Haley, involving a firearm that was reportedly tossed behind a Wilmington, Delaware grocery store. Because according to the New York Post, texts from Hunter Biden himself suggest that the Secret Service was involved in the incident, despite contrary claims from the agency. Quote, "She stole the gun out of my trunk lockbox and threw it in a garbage can filled to the top at Jansen's. Then told me it was my problem to deal with," end quote. Hunter wrote, according to messages obtained by the New York Post. Hunter then continued, quote, "Then when the police, the FBI, and the Secret Service came on the scene, she said she took it from me because she was scared I would harm myself due to my drug and alcohol problem and our volatile relationship," end quote. And there's even more, because according to Politico and new documents obtained by the Federalist, Hunter may have lied on his federal form 4473 about his past drug use when he answered no to question 11E about drug and substance abuse. And today, Senators Grassley and Johnson have sent letters to the Secret Service, the FBI, and the ATF demanding answers about the incident. We've reached out to Hunter Biden's lawyer for comment, but have yet to hear anything back.
Rick, we saw the tragedy. We don't condone anything that happened there in Colorado and Boulder. But let me go over the facts of Boulder, Colorado's, and the state of Colorado's gun laws. They have universal background checks. They have a 15-round magazine limit. They have the red flag law. They have closed loopholes to gun shows. They have mental adjudication for firearm ownership. They have, if you have a restraining order on you, you can't get a firearm. There's an assault weapon ban in Boulder County, Colorado, and a 10-round magazine limit. Yet all of those laws, this still happened. Your thoughts? Let's look at the Second Amendment on that. Go.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing that the lunatics don't care about the laws, right? I mean, common sense tells you that if you have a sign that says this is a gun-free zone, that is not going to stop the crazy person from coming in to take life. These mass murder events have got to stop. I actually agree with the initial statement of President Biden and a lot of liberal politicians who say it's past time to do something about this, and the politicians that are blocking common sense legislation need to get out of the way or get fired. The difference is, what do we mean by common sense legislation? They think that all of these naive gun control laws are going to stop crime. It doesn't. Evil exists in our world. We know that. We understand the depravity of man. And the only thing that's going to stop that bad guy that comes in to commit mass murder in your grocery store, your Walmart, your restaurant, your church, wherever it may be, is not a good guy with a gun, but a trained good guy with a gun. And we need national reciprocity that allows good guys that are trained with their guns and gals to be in any of these stores or any of these places anywhere in the country. When I drive into another state, I don't have to stop and get a different driver's license. Why should I have to not be able to use my concealed carry license in these other states? The reason I'm dressed like I am right now is I'm out in Nevada training 300 people right now on the Constitution and on how to defend their family and defend those around them should the wolf show up at their door. And these politicians that are preventing girls on college campuses from being able to carry their weapon they're trained with, and then they get raped, prevent people from being able to stop these mass murders in their tracks. They've got to get out of the way, and we need to be able to allow our good people to carry weapons. I am so angry right now, righteously angry, because we allow these crazy people to go aisle by aisle for 30 minutes or sometimes an hour murdering people because we didn't allow for the good folks to have the guns to stop it. You can't have a police officer in every store or in every home or on every corner. That would be a police state. We don't want that. So we need the citizens to be able to do that. And last thing I'll say on that, Greg, is I appreciate you have Sheriff Lamb on, because we need to be praying for Sheriff Lamb.
Yes.
All of these sheriff deputies and all of these police officers, their job is hard enough as it is in a country that lately has been denigrating and not honoring these guys, but instead, you know, the crazy stuff that people are doing against cops right now. Their job's hard enough, but now President Biden has made his job very, very difficult. So let's be sure and lift those folks up in prayer.
And we will, and we certainly will. I want to bring Sheriff Lamb in from Arizona, Pinal County. Sheriff, if you got just a second, I want to show you a photo that was given to us by Sheriff Daniels in Cochise County. That man there is carrying what looks like an AR, and he's not one of our guys. That's a cartel member. That's coming across the border. Have you seen that and know about that?
Oh, yeah. In our county, we actually even have scouts that live in the mountains They're armed up there, and they are there to ensure that the humans and the drugs that are being trafficked in are not intercepted by law enforcement or RIP crews. The RIP crews are drug dealers from the Phoenix area that will come down and steal the drugs from the other smugglers. So, yeah, we see the armed guys all the time, even in our county. I know they happen here in Cochise County, and it is a real problem. And now you have no idea who's coming in, whether they're from Mexico, Guatemala, Iran, who knows? And we've caught them from all over the place. And all Americans should be concerned with the security of this country when you allow people to come in completely unchecked. And I want to quickly thank Rick for those prayers. That means a lot to us. So thank you, Rick.
Well, no, thank you. Do you mind? This is what makes us different than the other networks. We'll just do it right now. Father, I thank you for all the sheriffs and the law enforcement and the Border Patrol, all the people that are protecting this great land. I ask that you protect them and their families now. And we ask that in Jesus' name, amen. And we're going to have people all over America praying for you tonight, Sheriff, and your men and women that are on the front lines. You're on the tip of the spear, sir, and we cannot thank you enough. Thank you, Sheriff Lamb
for
Pinal County, Arizona. Thank you, sir, for what you're doing. Rick Green,
God bless you guys.
Thank you, sir. Rick Green, thank you so much for the insight that you bring to us with the Constitution. Your Texas was showing just a little bit there a while ago, and I just didn't know if you knew that or not. That's what we call it around here. Your Texas is showing. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tonight, Tim.
God bless you, everybody.